Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Madelaine Weiss. And I'm so happy that you are here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Thank you so much. I would love to introduce you to the audience, of course. So, you are a Harvard trained licensed psychotherapist and mindset expert with an MBA and board certification in executive career and life coaching. With experience as a former corporate leader and Harvard Medical School program director, you are also a best selling author of Getting to Great, 5-step strategy for work and life. Your upcoming book, What's Your Story, focuses on personal development for kids and the people who love them. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, Madelaine Weiss.
Thank you.
My first question to you is, how does your 5-step great strategy help individuals improve both their work and personal lives?
I missed the first part of your sentence. You asked me how something helped
Yeah.
individuals improve, but I missed what the something was.
It says, how does your 5-step great
Oh,
strategy
oh, yes,
help
yes, yes,
individuals? Okay.
yes. Okay, so what happened was I noticed that my clients were doing very well. And I was thinking that my background is so varied and they were also different from one another that I thought, okay, something's working and I don't know what it is. So I brought out all my cases in their folders and I laid them out all over the floor. And I was looking at them and I thought, what do they all have in common? And I came up with these 5 steps that they all went through to get from where they were when I met them to a great life. And yeah. And so I can tell you what the so yeah. So it's an acronym, GREAT. And if you want me to, I could go through what, yeah.
Yes,
The,
please.
the first sentence of the book really says it all. And it is a great life depends on a great fit between who we are and the environments in which we live. Now, Darwin said that, Darwin and Wallace said that many, many, many years ago. But it's as true today as it was then. What's different now is that we have a much more highly developed frontal cortex. So we can choose those environments. You can choose to live here and not there. You can choose to work here and not there. We also have the ability now to modify our environments. And when I say environments, I want to make sure you know that I don't mean just the external environment. So I've had clients who've moved to the other side of the world because he was a practicing doctor and he liked the way they practice medicine over there more than he liked the way they practice. So he changed the environment in which he worked. But I've also had people who didn't change a thing outside of themselves. They rearranged the furniture upstairs in their head so they fell in love with exactly where they are. So, in the interest of time, I could leave you with just that rather than unpacking the whole thing. So, if you have other questions.
Oh, yes, of course, I have other questions. And now I have even more questions. But I love what you said about the environment and Darwin. We have to mention this survival of the fittest, right? And environment is not or equal, it doesn't equal environment. We have the outside world and the inside world. And you mentioned the greatness or of the frontal cortex. So nice. And your analogy with the furniture. When I heard it today, I had a conversation and she said to me, when she wants to buy new furniture, she has to make room first, right?
Ah, nice.
Mm.
A very nice extension of that analogy. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's the case. So, on the other hand, you can move to the end of the world and nothing changes because you bring yourself
A
with
hundred
you.
percent.
Yeah, I witnessed this, so I have to learn I have to learn how to change my inner environment, of course. And my next question, I'm so curious about your book, and the next one and the next one. So, what key insights from your work with executives can benefit children in What's Your Story?
Well, what I noticed was a lot of my adult clients were saying things like, how come no one ever told me anything about the mind and how it matters when I was younger? And I was thinking, yeah, because that could have prevented you from hitting the wall a few times the way you did and making yourself and everyone around you miserable. It would have been good to know this earlier. Plus, I actually have clients who would talk with me about their children, and we would do like a little bit of tweaking on how they interacted with their children. And just a little bit made all the difference in the world. So when they were saying, how come no one ever told me? I thought, okay, fine. And I never intended to write a children's book ever. And the next thing I knew, it kind of bubbled up in me. And I think that's my thing, is that when you're quiet enough inside, things bubble up. And it bubbled up in me, write this little book for kids. And, parental burnout is pretty rampant right now. So I have this wonderful dad who's a VP in finance, did the book with his little boy and girl. And he said it's really been wonderful for them because he said, I catch the kids now doing your little breathing, my 30-second mindset breathing thing when they're feeling stressed. And then he added, and I'm learning and growing too, because now they call me on it. We have a common language. So they call me on it when I'm reacting instead of responding from a higher part of myself. The kids call them on that now. So I thought, yes.
Yes. So first of all, you accepted the challenge to write a children's book. And then, and now you realized, or I realized, that it's not only for children because the parents are reading it, for example, with or for the children, right?
Well, one of the hallmarks of burnout is detachment. And so the parents, the statistics are that parental burnout is pretty high right now, and that 75% of working parents, their main concern is their children's mental health. So you can only imagine how that's affecting productivity at work and the bottom line. So it feels like this is a way to confront the detachment. It's like just, a fun, nice way to bring the parents and the kids together. And it's not so challenging. I made it sort of fun so they can feel better together. And then that carries over for the kid when they go to school, and that carries over for the parent when they go to work. So it's just a little way to intervene in a small way that I think can make a big difference. So,
Yes, absolutely. I
yeah.
can relate to that. So when you said or you talked about burnout when parents go to work, for example, I can imagine that when they are at work, for example, they have remorses not to spend so much time with their kids. And when they are at home, they think, oh, I should do more work or I have work to do, something like that. Yeah, and I think the book is vehicle for connection, to reconnect the parents with
Totally.
their kids.
I'll
And
tell you something funny.
yes,
There's this woman, she and her husband both work outside the home, and they both travel, she more than he. And when she would leave, her son would go berserk, which made it really hard for her to leave. And then she'd worry about him the whole time she's gone, and he wouldn't go to school. And it was really kind of stressful for them. So I said to her, what if, let's play a game, let's try, let's experiment. Instead of talking with him about how you'll be back soon and why he shouldn't worry and telling him not to feel what he feels, what if you go directly and connect with him in what he feels before you try to take that away from him? So, anyway, it's called going your right brain to his right brain instead of your left brain to his right brain. So you connect with him where he is. So she tried this. And why I'm laughing is because it was what was so funny is she was really connecting with him, and the kids started saying, like go, like leave, because he got what he needed. He didn't need her to tell him everything was going to be fine and she'd be home soon. He needed her to connect with how he felt. And once he got that, it's like, enough, go, bye. It was, great. So.
It is great. I never heard this before, but it makes totally sense. I can connect the dots now, and this has also the word connection in it. I want to ask you, or I can repeat this, okay? Instead of your left brain talks to his left brain, and this creates understanding for the other person instead of removing or wanting to remove the so to say bad feeling the child has, right? Because we were educated, or I was raised that way. When I had a bad feeling, then go away or isolate yourself and
Oh,
come back
no.
when you feel better or something, or when you behave, something
It
like
has
that.
to be acknowledged first. Otherwise, it gets bigger.
Oh my
It doesn't
goodness.
make it go away. It makes the upset, the big feelings get bigger when they're not acknowledged. Like what we resist persists. It gets bigger, not littler. So when we do, as the adult, let's say, left brain logical, trying to talk sense, the kid can't even hear you because he's just not there, you know? So you have to go where the kid is and connect in the feeling. And in fact, I have an instruction in the book on how children can do that for themselves, to also not tell yourself you shouldn't feel what you feel, to acknowledge it first. And then there's this little breathing exercise that puts the higher brain, the more logical brain, the lefter brain, in charge once you've connected with the feeling. So,
Yeah, so to say, at the end, you connect both sides of the brain with each other, and then it is like a restorage. No, not restorage. I don't know the word. Re
restore.
Restore. Yes,
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
learn the
Well, there's something called the hand model of the brain.
word.
So, this is the emotional part of the brain. And when this gets hysterical, like
Mhm.
freaking out, it throws the higher brain offline. And so you're not really thinking straight. And if somebody tries to talk to your higher brain, like your mother's trying to tell you everything's going to be fine and you have nothing to worry about, it's absent. It's not collecting the information because it's offline. So when you do this little breathing thing, it puts it all. So to use your word, it restores the integration and the functioning of the brain. It restores it. So when it's crazy, it restores it. So
And it calms it down, right? So there is
it
no,
calms it and it clears it so that you can think well. You can't think well when this thing is berserk.
and we don't have to blame the outside world for what's happening.
No, no. And this applies to kids and adults. And
Mhm.
again, I think the adults, once they learn it, are thinking, geez, why didn't I know this before?
So the exercise, do we find it in the great book and or in the children's book?
Both.
Okay, that's
So
good.
The great book has, I think, like 10 chapters or something, and there's an exercise pertaining to the chapter at the end of every chapter. And this one is full of all kinds of exercises, but I can show you this page. Well, no, I can't because I can't find it right now. But in any case, the instructions are in here. There it is.
Yes, it is in the book.
I'm calling it the ATM way to
Oh,
happiness. And then I make a joke that's not the ATM machine where the money comes out. This has nothing to do with money, but it's acknowledging the emotions, A, then teaming up with your brain, your higher brain, through the breathing exercise, and then M, make a plan of action once you have your brain restored.
mhm.
So,
And
yeah.
have it back. Yes, I wanted to ask about, because you used the word, yeah, connection, but also detachment. You talked about detachment, and I
Yeah.
know this from, yeah, there's attachment, or you are attached to your parents in several ways, right? Is it
Yeah.
the attachment you were talking about, or what did you mean by detachment?
So, when people are feeling overwhelmed or there's too much emotion, they can frequently sort of like crawl into themselves, take themselves out of connection with other people. So if a child is upset, their upset can be disturbing enough to the adult that the adult wants to get away from it. And the more they try to get, so that's why I use the word detach. The more they go out of connection or detach from it, it doesn't make the child better. It agitates the child more. And then the child might learn how to detach also, but that's not really solving anything. It's getting away from it, but it makes it worse, not better, because it's not really solving anything.
Mhm. It's like denying.
Yes, it is. Exactly.
Something like that, denying the, like not, yeah, you said not recognizing it. So it wants to be felt and appreciate, or welcomed as well, and then it will pass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, and this is the attachment, then you are attached to this emotion, it doesn't go away. And then you talked about the recognition part, and then the children say, uh or they are ready to let their parents go for a work travel or something. Yes.
This kid was more than ready. It was like, go, get out of here.
Yeah, I wanted to find a nice way to, not a like exaggerated way
It
to.
was great. It was just what his mom needed so
Mhm.
that she could feel free to leave and to concentrate on her work, knowing that her kid was fine.
Wow, what an amazing method you have here. Okay, I have another question, of course.
Yes, dear.
How has your background in psychotherapy and corporate leadership shaped your approach to life coaching?
Well, what happened was I am a classically trained psychotherapist through the Harvard system. So it was what they used to call, I don't know if they still do, insight oriented. So there was a lot of work on the early history and maybe the grievances about that. And the idea was that if people got to vent enough, they would begin to heal. But it didn't always work that way because what neurologists have learned now is that the more you vent about the trauma, the more it strengthens the neural connections related to the trauma. So it can make it, unfortunately, the trauma stronger instead of weaker. So the idea that when people go to a therapist and they sit down and for 50 minutes, and then they leave and come back next week and for 50 more minutes, and nothing gets better. So I read this book along the way. It was called How People Change. It was by a psychoanalyst, and his basic premise was how people change is they just do. They do something different out of the comfort zone, out of the of that they've been doing and doing and doing, and things unfreeze and begin to change. So it became a pet peeve of mine that in the therapy world, a lot of it was just going over and over and over, and nothing was changing. So coaching offered me a vehicle through which I could do something with my clients that was more action oriented. So at the end of every session, let's say, there's always an action step that came as a result of whatever it was we were talking about in the session. And there's something called the Goldilocks principle. So it's the step would be not so big that they're going, I'm never doing that. And then they do nothing, but not so little that the brain didn't experience the excitement of the novelty of doing something new. So not too big, not too little, but just right, something along the growth path rather than just sitting there complaining and blaming and suffering and not changing anything.
Oh, I love that what you said. This is exactly my approach and what I love, and the reason why I did not become a psychotherapist yet, because I studied psychology, by the way. But
Okay.
yeah, after doing economics for many, many years, and my dream was always that. And then I found coaching as well, and I said I don't want to dive into the trauma. I want to work with prevention to prevent that something happens like that. And what you said is so important, that the more you repeat your old story, the more it is reinforced, so to say, you relive this again and again, and it cannot heal, right?
You know, I always say to my clients this: only as much as is necessary to get the job done. So we do go back there,
Yeah.
but only as much as is necessary to get the job done. And the job is not your past. The job is your present and in future. So whatever we can learn from what happened and take that learning and apply it to now and the future, great, but not to get stuck there. And some people really think they're getting what they need when someone plays Ain't It Awful with them. Like sits there and acknowledges how awful it was. But beyond a certain point, it's not helpful. It's helpful to a point because it reinforces the connection between the helping person and the client to be understood and respected and appreciated. But beyond a certain point, it's counterproductive, I would
Yes,
say.
it's the opposite. I agree. And I would say it's identifying the problem without getting emotionally involved into that, to know what you are working on, and then to move on and to distract from that, for example, and say, how do I want it to be? And then
Yes,
to work on that vision,
yes,
Yes. Mhm.
yes,
So
yes,
this is great. I have one last question for
yes,
you. You
yes.
already talked about your new book that's coming out. Do you set goals for yourself or intentions? And what is one of your next projects?
What is, well, actually, this book is the first in a four-part series. So in this book, I have like a chapter on money and a chapter on time, and I have one called Mastering Your Mouth, and it's not about food. It's about like when to speak, when not to speak, how to speak, all that kind of stuff. So I decided that I wanted to also convert that into something that was child friendly. So the next book is What About Money for Kids? And the one after that is What About Time for Kids? And the other one is What About People? Like how to do other people in your life for kids. So that's what's coming next. This one is published November 19th. So it'll, I think, already be out by the time this is aired. And then the other ones I'm going to publish as a set after I do all three of them. So
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll take a look. Please reach out to Madeleine. She's amazing. She shares her knowledge and wisdom to us with our audience. And this was our interview. Thank you.
thank you. That
And
was fun.
see you
Thank you.
in the next episode.